Hello everyone, welcome to my vlog. Well, it's not really a vlog because I have not been doing what I was asked to. I wasn't vlogging from what I was supposed to. It's just more like simply a video. Yeah, so I will be talking about 5 theories of communication out of the many that we were taught in class over the course of the entire semester. I'd like to start with semiotics. Now, if I ask you to picture cheese, what comes in your mind? I'm sure all of us will be thinking of different kinds of cheese, myself included. Some will be thinking of American slices, others will be thinking of mozzarella, and so on. The fact that each one of us thinks of different kinds of cheese shows how we interpret a message. That is what semiotics is all about. Now, the basic question comes in mind is, what is semiotics? Well, it is the study of signs and symbols, and it was first popularized by Ferdinand de Saussure and Charles Sanders Peirce. Now, Saussure claimed that there is no definite relationship between a signifier and a signified. Now, what is a signifier and a signified? A signifier is a physical form of a sign, while a signified is the concept that the signifier refers to. For instance, when I say chair, it's not actually representing a chair. Well, it's not the actual chair itself, is it? No, it's not. It's simply a random string of letters which spells CHAIR in English. That is the signifier, and signified will be the object itself, and in this case, the chair, of course. The fact that we are thinking of different types of one object shows how we are interpreting a message, and that is what Saussure tells us, that a signifier has no absolute relationship to the signified. Now, the other guy who popularized semiotics, that is Charles Peirce, he said that the signs can be categorized in 3 ways: icon, symbols, and index. What is an icon? Icon directly resembles an object. For example, a painting of a chair is actually an icon of a chair. The symbol is an exact opposite of an icon. It doesn't resemble the signifier. It varies from society to society. For example, the logo we see of a man and a woman, a male or a female, outside every washrooms or every trial rooms, that indicates that it is a changing room, or there is a toilet nearby, or so on. That is a symbol. And for index, it describes a physical connection between a signifier and a signified, meaning a signifier cannot exist without a signified. For example, when you see smoke, you know there is fire somewhere nearby, right? And the same way, when you see fire, you know there has to be smoke there. And the last thing I'd like to discuss about semiotics is that it also deals with connotation and denotation. Connotation is the subjective meaning of a word. It is what we interpret. It varies from culture to culture, while denotation is simply the dictionary meaning of something. It is what it is. Like colors, we all love colors, and let's say red. If I am to pick a color, I'd say red, and the denotative meaning of the color red would be, what is it? A color, simply a color, red. Scarlet, carmine, or something like that. Synonyms, of course. And for connotation, if I'm to define the connotative meaning of red, this could mean so many things for different cultures. For some cultures, red might mean a color of festive, while for others it could mean murder, death, blood. And I'm sure this is all over the world. And also danger, stop. So that is the underlying meaning of the word, which is known as the connotative meaning of the word. The next theory which I'd like to talk about is hot and cool media. Marshall McLuhan first came up with this theory. Hot media are the type of media that requires less attention from the audience. It is the high definition media. While cool media is exactly the opposite. It is a type of media that requires a lot of attention from the audience. It is the low definition media. Radio could be an example of hot media because only one sensory organ is used here, our sense of hearing, of course. Which means less audience participation is needed. While in cool media, television could be an example. When we watch TV, we don't just watch it, we also hear it. So 2 sensory organs are in action here, and more audience participation is needed. That goes for hot and cool media. Now, the debatable topic here is the media which were considered hot back then are considered cool these days. Well, what does that mean? For example, when McLuhan said movies are hot media, because in his time, in his era, uh, movies did not require that much audience participation, mainly because they weren't so much technologically advanced. But in today's time, movies are so much more than that, and it demands a lot more attention from the audience to understand a simple plot. The third theory which I'd like to talk about is encoding and decoding. Encoding and decoding falls under audience reception theory, and Stuart Hall is often mentioned as one of the frontrunners of this theory. Encoding and decoding theory, the one that he comes up with, it roughly states that a message is encoded by the sender and decoded by the receiver, meaning encoder is the sender and decoder is the receiver. He also says that it's not as simple as it looks like, and hence he elaborates it and adds more terms to it called producer and consumers. Producers of messages are the senders, while receivers of messages are the consumers. Consumers are basically us, the audience, and the ones who are creating the media content are the producers. Now, as audience, when we watch something or listen to something, we don't interpret the message the same way. Everybody has their own way of interpreting a message. Hence, a classification of audience is created. This is termed as active and passive audience. Active audience are the ones who watches or follows something religiously, and passive being the ones who are not very interested in watching that thing, but they know about the existence of it. Let's say the popular TV show Breaking Bad. Now, I consider myself as an active audience of the show. My mother knows about the show, she knows about the existence of the show, she knows about the main plot of the show and also the main characters of the show, but she never made it through one single episode. She never really cared enough to watch an episode. That would mean she is a passive audience. Now, active audience has three divisions: dominant hegemony, negotiated, and oppositional. Dominant is when the receiver decodes the connotative and denotative meaning exactly as it was encoded by the sender, basically when the receiver completely agrees with the sender. And negotiated is somewhere in the middle, when the receiver partly agrees and partly disagrees with the sender. And oppositional, the last one, would be when the receiver doesn't agree with the sender at all, which means it is pretty self-explanatory when the sender is basically opposing the idea or the message that is being sent to them by the sender. To provide an example would be Rick and Morty. I would consider myself in the dominant hegemony group because I love it, I watch it all the time, and also because I decode the message being sent to me exactly as it is, sent by the sender. While in the negotiated group, I would like to classify there my friend, because he partly agrees with the show and partly disagrees. Like how? Because he thinks that Rick being the drunk grandfather, is a bad influence towards his grandchildren, Summer and Morty, because he's drunk all the time. This is what he dislikes about the show, and what he likes about the show is that how Rick and Morty goes on interesting adventures. And for oppositional, I would say my sister. She hates it, she doesn't like it at all. She prefers Family Guy or Simpsons or South Park over it. The fourth theory which I would talk about is users and gratification theory. This also falls under audience reception theory. It states that we as audience are the ones who decide what to watch and when to watch or listen. And we, the audiences, have become so much more literate that we don't believe anything and everything that is being fed to us by the media. For example, even if I don't flip through the pages of a newspaper in the morning, I will still get to know the news all over the world from sources like my phone and so on. Meaning, I, being the audience, have the power to access the news in whatever form or device I may wish. The fact that we can differentiate what to believe and what not to shows that media isn't all that powerful, and what audience is essentially doing to the media is what this users and gratification theory is all about. In simple words, how we use media to gratify. This theory divides audience in three groups: or categories: spectators, participants, and fans. Spectators can be both active and passive. It's basically when someone watches something and doesn't really do anything about it. Participants are the ones who take part in something right after engaging themselves in some sort of form of media. Fans are it basically comes from the word fanatic, and they're the ones who are the crazy ones. They're crazy about their favorite actors, sports people, movies, games, and so on. Now, for example, suppose I watch a tutorial on YouTube about DIY phone cases, and right after watching it, I closed the tab or I switched on to some other video. What did I do? I did not do anything about it. I simply watched it because I liked it, but I didn't do anything about it. That means I am a spectator here. But if I watch it and actually make myself a phone cover like I did here a few months back, that would mean I took part in it. By taking part in it, I am a participant. While fans, examples of fans would be anywhere around the world. Well, they could do the craziest of all things. For example, when they kill themselves when their favorite team loses with the rival teams and so on. The last theory which I would talk about is media imperialism, thankfully. Media imperialism states that due to concentration of mass media, a larger nation can easily dominate a smaller one, resulting in the loss of their own cultural identity. Now you may ask, what is an identity? Identity is who you are, your gender, your religion, nationality, or anything that basically defines you. Back in the days, identities were more stable, but today it has become more fragmented. We don't really know who we are. Media imperialism plays a huge role in this. The movies, the TV programs, music, or any other form of media that we surround ourselves by tend to influence a huge number of audience. As a result, the cultural as well as personal identity of an individual, and perhaps gradually to some extent a nation, changes. This includes their clothing, lifestyle, the way they talk, and so on. The most common example of this would be our neighboring country, India. Since they're a bigger nation than us, they almost all the time tend to dominate our Bangladeshi culture with their media, and I'm sure we've all seen results of that. If I'm to give an example, I would say the lavish wedding ceremonies that has been occurring for the past few years here in Bangladesh, consisting mostly of Indian music, clothing, jewelries, and even the name of the events. Now that is an example of media imperialism. I'd like to conclude my video here. Thank you all so much for watching it, and thank you for hearing me blabber all this while. And yeah, bye.